All right. Well, welcome everyone. I am joined here by, do you want me to call you HuskyHacks?
Yeah, sure. HuskyHacks. I mean, Matt is fine as well.
Okay.
But yeah, that's my handle.
So we have Matt or HuskyHacks as we would call it in InfoSec. This is my first interview. I've never talked about anything like just one-on-one with someone before and recording it. So this is a first for me. So
I'm the first one. That's amazing. I'm honored. I'm absolutely honored. Let's make it a good one.
Yeah, I hope. We got some good questions here. I asked everyone on my Discord just to contribute what they want to know. So I want to be kind of their voice for this, and then it's just going to be conversational.
Nice.
So I found Matt on VetSec. I have no affiliate. VetSec's not paying for anything or anything like that. I just put a shout out like, hey, does anyone want to be on my YouTube channel? And then Matt hit me up within like 5 minutes. So, and he sent me over some stuff, and he's quite the interesting figure with the background that he has. I mean, I'm taking a look at your cyber.media interview, and it says author, content architect. I've never heard that title in my life. Yeah. Cybersecurity practitioner and Marine Corps vet. So I guess just tell me what your job is and like an elevator pitch sort of scenario.
Sure. Well, so I guess I should start addressing the elephant in the room, which is what is a cybersecurity content architect? And thoughts aside of if that's like an effective term or not, I'm also kind of known as a cybersecurity content developer, right? So I'm on a content development team at a new tech startup. We service the global Fortune 500, and we make training ranges, very realistic training ranges to put together so that they can train their teams on these ranges. So very, very briefly speaking, a content architect / content developer is somebody who has a both the technical range engineering capability as well as the instructional design, authoring, and kind of like pedagogical perspective to be able to put those two things together and make engaging training that's realistic to give to cybersecurity teams. Effectively, I'm trying to learn as much as I can, build really cool, fun stuff, engaging training to put people on ranges and have them, complete objectives and learn some stuff along the way, and then teach effectively via writing, we don't have in-person instruction yet, but I think that's coming up. But yeah, that's essentially what the job is in a nutshell. And it kind of boils down to the three things that I love the most about this career, which is that I learn things, I teach things, and I build things. And I get to do all of those in my current job role.
That's a lot. That's pretty cool, man. So for my viewers, the term ranges is pretty like well known in the military. Do you mind telling us what a range is?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have ever built out your own lab environment, what that means is that you are putting together a network with some notional fake infrastructure that you can either, maybe you're on the offensive side and you want to try some attacks against it, or maybe you're on the defensive side and you want to set up some kind of EDR, or that's some kind of detection capability. So a range is really just this big virtual area where professionals and practitioners and teams of practitioners can get in to this kind of notional place, and they can do whatever they want. They can play capture the flag. They can do specific instructional training. So I like to put together, corporate-looking networks and have them go into those networks and just, practice some attack runs or maybe practice defense. So that's effectively what a range is. It's just an area where that's stood up in virtual infrastructure that some cybersecurity professionals can go into to practice their skills.
Now, is this mainly for like the government? I mean, you're totally fine if saying like who your clients are or not, but is this mainly because I mean, coming from Army Cyber, we had ranges, I swear, like in every country, like in Japan, Korea, and such like that. Mm-hmm. We would always have scenarios and tabletop exercises like that. So is it mainly the military that you find like, hey, Matt, let's go ahead and do this tabletop exercise in this range, or do corporations like private entities, do they reach out?
I would say that I can't speak a ton about our clientele, but we've got, we're like 7-Eleven. We're not always doing business, but we're always open.
Gotcha. Cool. So one of the few questions I wanted to cover that my subscriber base has asked is, tell us a little bit about your background. Like, okay, you have your content creation job now.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do all before that led you up to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't start here. This is the culmination of, I guess, 8 years of working up to this at this point. Way back in the day when I kind of had a choice between going to college and doing that, or maybe seeing what else I wanted out of life. I chose military service kind of on a whim, honestly. But it kind of just goes like that. But
yep.
I looked at the two options and I was like, I see what college is going to bring me. I'm going to just mess around for 4 years. I'm going to have a ton of debt and nothing to show for it. And then maybe I'll be successful after that. Military service, I figured, was the better option. And even then I knew I wanted to make sure that I had a skill that I could exit service with that would bring me, at least the shot at a good career afterwards. In any case, I signed up as in the Marines, what's known as aviation logistics management support. And essentially, in human language, what that means is that I was IT backbone support for the air wing of the Marine Corps. So the Marine Corps has the land component, and they also have the air component. They have a full functioning fleet of jets and helicopters. My original assignment would have been with some of these legacy platforms, so like maybe the F-18 or the Harrier, or maybe a helicopter squadron. But while I was going through my military occupational school training, my staff NCO kind of pulled me aside and said, hey, we've got this kind of interesting assignment, and we think you might be the right person for it, but we want to talk to you about it. And I was like, okay, sure, go on. He was like, this new thing called the F35, nobody really knows what it's going to ask of the kind of IT. Like, we have this whole new IT suite that's rolling out, and nobody really knows how to deal with it or what it's going to do. But that squadron is standing up right now in Yuma, Arizona, and you would be one of 3 Marines on the ground there to actually support that IT background, or backbone, I should say. So I said, sure, send me out there. Sounds great. So that was the first part was effectively help desk, system administration, network administration. My military occupational schoolhouse gave me all manner of like networking and just sysadmin stuff, troubleshooting. And then the first job that I had was to be like operational level support for this fleet. We had 3 jets at the time. I think I got there. Maybe we had like 2, but in any case, it doesn't matter. But brand new squadron. I'm helping out with the kind of IT related stuff. A little bit after that, a couple years after doing that, they moved me up into what's known as the Special Access Program, the Special Access Program Facility, the SAPF. Military viewers may be familiar with these things. If you also know what a SCIF is, a SAPF is similar to a SCIF, and it's basically where the classified information about whatever you're kind of working in is kept and stored and secured. So I worked that. I also worked intelligence. So I was trained as an auxiliary intelligence analyst as well. So if you put a triangle together between those 3 areas, I was not the Marine Corps does have a cyber component, but I was not trained as one of those specialists. Right? I wasn't interactive on network, as they say, or cyber defense or anything like that. But if you look at that triangle, IT support, intelligence, and special access program security. So IT, security, and intelligence. Cybersecurity was like the midpoint of that. And it just made sense. So after I got out of service, I went to go do undergrad at Northeastern University, thus the Husky and HuskyHacks as a side note. And with just a general information technology degree and kind of my experience, that led me to the path of becoming more involved in cybersecurity or seeking out cybersecurity opportunities. So at that point, I know I'm kind of going on for a long time here. But
go on.
In any case, at that point, because I want to ask you questions too, so I want to make sure. But while I was in undergraduate, I was applying for a co-op position through Northeastern. And Northeastern, I was living in Massachusetts at the time. There's this really, really cool, interesting place called the MIT Lincoln Laboratory. It's under the same administration as the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but it's what's known as an FFRDC, a federally funded research and development center. Essentially, what that place was MIT's efforts to work with the DoD and government to rapidly prototype pieces of technology that would assist in Department of Defense, kind of projects. I applied for a co-op there through Northeastern, thinking I would get a co-op and it would be a summer gig. And they came back and said, you have the credential set to be a full-time embedded cybersecurity analyst. Do you want to do that? We won't stop you from applying for a co-op, but do you want to do that instead? And I was like, okay. But that meant that I would have to be full-time in school and full-time at the laboratory at the same time. So that was going to be super tough to pull off. The final semesters that I was at Northeastern, I was doing both of those things full-time.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, super intense. Still going to class on campus, but still driving in. I'm talking like 5-hour commute round trips per day. So tough stuff. But in any case, made it through that, graduated from Northeastern. Still working at the laboratory for a couple more years as an embedded cybersecurity analyst. That was my first like hands-on network, ground, trench level. We've got to secure some stuff. What's your plan to put it together? I was lucky enough to work in the Space Systems and Technology Research Division. So I'm working with like world-class scientists who are doing, radio astronomy and building focal planar arrays and putting things on satellites and sending them up in space. So at a certain point, I kind of realized that I needed a little more teeth to my cybersecurity skill set because I was very much in GRC, governance, risk and compliance, right? Yep. Is it GRC, govern risk and compliance?
Yeah, I struggle with it. Yeah, it's risk management.
Risk management, thank you. Very much on that side. Had some amount of cybersec, hands-on keyboard skills from my time as a network and systems analyst, but like I would remember this distinct feeling that I didn't know enough to feel like I was contributing enough to the program. And at that point, when I realized that I really need to upskill, that's when I found VetSec. That's when I found the kind of red side of going after OSCP and ECPPT. And that started like it continues to this day, a journey towards rounding out the skill set with kind of an offensive technical cybersecurity background. At this point, I continued to do that for a little while. And then the final leg of this journey is that in February of this year, 2020, I decided to quit my job at the laboratory. I gave my 8 weeks of notice so we could do enough turnover. And I said, this might be one of the best times of my life to go take a bit of a sabbatical. Mm-hmm. I attempted a through hike of the Appalachian Trail starting in February of 2020. I think we know where this is going.
Oh yeah.
So I made it 250 miles up into the Smoky Mountains. Was out of cell phone range the entire time when I was up in the Smokies. I want to say March 23rd. I was headed out of the Smokies, got back into cell phone reception, and checked my cell phone and realized that society had devolved into chaos. So I was like, okay, we got to figure something out.
So what was were you said you were going to do the whole Appalachian range?
I was going to do the whole thing. So from Georgia, from Springer Mountain, Georgia, started there, made it through the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, which kind of weaves in between Tennessee and North Carolina. Yep. And made it out of the Smokies. And then that night we stayed at a hostel at the foot of the Smokies, and we had kind of a campfire side debate on whether we should stay or go. Nobody had any information to go off of because we had all been out of cell phone range. Yeah. And so we're just looking around like, is this really going to be as bad as everybody's making it out to be, or is it just going to be a 2-week thing, and then can we get back onto the trail? Yeah. Ultimately, I called my partner, Emily. She talked me out of staying on the trail. I got in a rental car, burned all the way up the East Coast back to Massachusetts, and was home that next day. That is... And, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, we'll get back on topic with all cybersec stuff. Yeah, I remember I went to I was in Whistler like in February when like the first I think it was like the first case in the United States came in, and I was in Canada. I was like, holy shit. And that was right in my neck of the woods too, in the Seattle area. And my aunt was actually a nurse at that retirement home where they had like everyone was infected and they had like 3 people die every day, and she's a nurse there.
Oh my God.
And
wow.
I was actually at drill weekend in March in San Jose, and March 11th was when the pandemic was officially announced. And I'm like I just got done doing a PT test, which was funny because it was my last like drill weekend, and I was like, oh, I'm taking a PT test on my last day. Okay, I'll do that. And then I like get my phone, and then it's like the WHO. So I was like, it's a pandemic started today. I was like, oh God, and I had a vacation. So I was in Napa because it was my girlfriend's birthday. So we stayed in Napa for like the remainder of the week. I'm like super on edge. Like, does this person next to us at this like spaghetti place like have COVID or something? Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That was, it's still interesting to this day, but it was, I remember just being on edge during that time. So, so everything you just talked about right there is like pretty interesting. Like my pathway into security is very unorthodox, like yourself. I mean, it all started with me in the delayed entry program for aviation position. 15 uniform was the MOS for the Army, and I was 18 years old. I was a contractor for Boeing at that age. I took a skills class and I bought myself my dream motorcycle, and
nice.
I got a crotch rocket at the age of 18, and me being hormonal and all that, it probably wasn't the best purchase. So I got arrested in December of 2013. I was going 120 miles an hour on the freeway. I actually got pulled over by MPs, by JBLM. And, I was going 120 because I got a special text message that I'm like, oh, I got to go home quick. The girl hit me up, and so I got arrested. I got charged with all this stuff, and that actually prevented me from enlisting. Because you can't have open felony, or I don't know what they charged me with. I don't think it was a felony, but open case nonetheless. And like during like that gap time from me getting arrested to actually going to until my court date, I actually changed my mind. I didn't want to do aviation because I got like a job doing IT work and all that, and I really liked it. So I went back to the recruiter. I'm like, I don't want to do aviation anymore. I want to do IT stuff. And they said, oh, we got something 25 November. I was like, yeah, I'll take that. And they got me with a $3,000 bonus. I thought that was like, I got that up front. No, they spread that shit across my entire contract.
Yeah, sure. You get 3 pennies every 15 days.
Yeah. And they said, the ship date's June 2nd. It was May 15th. So I had like 2 weeks pretty much. I'm like, oh nice. Life comes at you fast, I guess. So, So your part about the F35, that's very interesting because I was in a cyber unit, so it's pretty much cut and dry. Everyone there is pretty much cyber focused outside of like brass and such like that. What do you even do like as an IT person in a jet? Like, what does that mean? Like IT, like F35 and IT, for someone that's not in the military, it's kind of hard to put those 2 and 2 together. What's that like? Yeah.
So like, when you're in a cyber battalion, your kind of workspace is just a row of computers, and it kind of makes sense that you're just going to be on those for most of the day. I was in an operational squadron, so my office was a hangar essentially, with some offices out, in the hallways behind the hangar. And so really like my day-to-day at that point was I would suit up in my coveralls because you can't wear the camouflage utilities out on the flight line. And then you would go out there and assist in a couple different things. There are these little laptops that maintainers use that are called like portable maintenance aids or something like that. So I would fix those a lot. I would unlock passwords on those a lot, or unlock accounts, I should say, not unlock passwords. Do a lot of that. Behind that, there is then this entire IT backbone of the F-35. So the F-35 was meant to be like this kind of smart aircraft that would know the maintenance requirements as it went out for flight operations and came back. It has effectively a hard drive in it that you plug into a system that will tell you, hey, a lot like your car when you get like what is that called? It's like but in any case, you plug in and you say, oh yeah, your O2 sensor is off.
Yeah, OBD2.
OBD2, thank you. You're a car guy. You know that's I'm not a car guy at all. So it's a lot like that. It's there's this backbone where those portable maintenance aids plug into that, and then there is this system called the ALIS system that's supposed to support all of that. So a lot of creating accounts for that, a lot of looking at the networking for that. Aside from that, there is then this entire classified architecture that's behind that as well for mission planning and doing other things that are classified in nature that also has a huge IT infrastructure behind it. So my time was split between those two worlds, right? The unclassed stuff, which is a lot of maintenance like a maintenance web application, get people into that, troubleshoot if they can't figure out what's going on with that, and then go up to the classified stuff, work in the mission planning suite. So that's a bit of what the day in the life was like. Lots of kind of your entry level, updating patches, updating what were they called? You know what? I don't even remember what they were, but they were the maintenance documentation manuals that were on these laptops that they would bring out. Lots of hand jam update those by burning a CD and loading them on. So a lot of busy work. But that was effectively an internship in IT, right? As a young Marine, one of three, in fact, you're gonna get all of kind of the low level grunt work. It just is what it is. I don't necessarily think that's true for everybody. Like if you're looking to break into IT, you should not relegate yourself immediately to a position like that. But as a Marine, I had absolutely no choice. Yeah. And it helped me along in my career to have that as my kind of foundation to build every other skill off of. But in any case, that was effectively it. We would do flight operations. We would come back. When I was moved up into the SAPF and doing the intelligence stuff, that's when I would interact with the pilots and say, all right, this is your mission for today. This is what you're going to be going against, and good luck and fly safe. And then I would also be administratively supporting those flight operations and doing the classified security. So that while I was in the military, that was effectively my day in, day out for 4 years. And then once I got out, I kind of went into the cyber realm after that.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting. Is for me. I mean, I honestly, the outside of doing cyber stuff, I probably interacted with like the Air Force, but they were like a CPT, that's a cyber protection team. Yep. And then like a few other national, like Germany and such like that. We'd all do exercises together. So it's nice to hear how like that, like outside of like the CPT, how like IT operations work and such like that. So, yeah. So getting a TS clearance, I know what the process is like. Kind of explain how much of a headache it is to fill out an SF-86.
Yeah. So, all right. So for anybody not familiar, what an SF-86 is if you've ever wanted to write a memoir before, you're going to be really thrilled to write an SF-86 and fill it all out. It's effectively everywhere you have lived, everyone you have known, everything you've ever done goes all inside of this one package that you submit for your security clearance, right? So the government has to mitigate the risk of bringing people in and saying, are these people trustworthy? The primary method that they do that is to give you this SF-86 and ask you to provide references, provide every place you've worked, provide all of your former supervisors. If any of them have any kind of remarks to make about you, positive or otherwise, they're gonna call them up and put that in there. So an SF-86 is clearance paperwork in the first place for either a secret clearance or a top secret clearance. Additionally, after that, depending on what level of access you're going to have, there's even more stringent requirements in some cases. I was in special programs, so in addition to the SF-86 that I would have to fill out every, for a secret clearance, 10 to 15 years, I think, I would then have yearly paperwork that I would do to make sure that I was not in debt, that I didn't owe anything to anybody, or that I hadn't been arrested or anything like that. So there are other, just a lot of these, and I as a SAPF administrator, I was administering the paperwork to other people to ask them to fill out, to make sure that we were granting clearances in good faith. And then so one even level above that would be TSSCI. SCI, for those unfamiliar, is sensitive compartmented information. I'm not going to go into specifically what that is for obvious reasons, but effectively it's one of the it's the highest clearance with one of the highest caveats that you can have. There is also special access program information at the TS level. Depending on your need to know whatever you need to be doing on a day-to-day basis, they will either grant you access to those programs or grant you access to SCI. at the end of the day, if you don't need that anymore, they'll read you out of the program. They'll have you sign a big, long non-disclosure agreement and say, you'll never tell anybody what you saw here today, and they'll do the Men in Black noisy cricket thing. Or that's not the noisy cricket, that's just the memory eraser. Anyway, so you'll sign your life away when you exit that place. And so the process there is that it starts with this huge, dense piece of paperwork that you have to document your entire life. If you're a little bit on the younger side, that is actually a lot easier. As you move up the layers of security, you are looked at even closer. I never had a polygraph, a counterintelligence or lifestyle scope polygraph, but that's a step even above that. And like, I'm sure everybody's heard the kind of horror stories about polygraphs. I'll spare you the diatribe, but in any case, it starts with the SF-86, and if you're going to fill out one of those, just make sure that you've thoroughly documented your life, called people ahead of time, and told them that they're going to be getting a call from somebody in investigations.
Yeah.
It's a good time. It's a real good time.
Yeah, I've unfortunately, when I have to fill out one again, I've moved so much since 2016. I mean, like, I've lived in a college like house before, like just paying like $400 a month in rent, but I had like 9 roommates and I don't know any of their names. I don't even remember the address, honestly, or who the landlord was. So it's going to be an interesting scavenger hunt for myself to get all that all that info back. So I know there might be some people that are like interested about the military. The whole secret clearance might be like kind of makes people nervous. I mean, I think you'd agree if you just don't lie on your SF. You're more than likely going to be fine unless there's like some like he mentioned earlier, if you're like deep in debt, the reason why that's looked upon is because you could be bribed by like a foreign entity and such like that. So it puts you in a higher risk. I mean, everyone in the military, they have to, or at least in the Army, you have to take this counterterrorism training, and then something else. It talks about this kind of stuff. So
my general advice would be, if you can, what they say is actually something my old maintenance control officer used to say is sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? If you can put it down on the SF-86 and say, yes, I did this, and I cannot be bribed about it because I'm coming clean about it, you're probably going to be fine. Yep. Real egregious stuff, if you're very much in debt, even they'll work with you about that. But disclosure, honesty is the best way forward in that process. And it'll smooth it all out for you. Just that you have that paperwork on record if you want to go on to get further levels of clearance, that you can be like, yes, like I got an adjudicated secret and I did this when I was 18 and I was an idiot. Having that in the record is going to help the people who are deciding to adjudicate that next level of clearance. Yeah, he or she seems pretty honest and forthcoming, so we're probably going to be okay.
Yeah. So. Cool. So let's get back on topic of cyber stuff. So, so what is like one of the things that you would say is like, I wouldn't say biggest fail, it's kind of harsh, but like what was the biggest lesson you've learned? Like, it's like, oh shit, I'm never going to do that again. What was that moment for you?
Yeah.
Kind of like.
I'll preface this by saying that if you want to be in this field, we will take anybody at this point, with a single caveat that you will need to fail forward. You will constantly need to be taking risks that may or may not pay off. Most of the time they will. You'll take a risk, you'll learn something and not have to kind of deal with the failure output of that. But a lot of the time they won't. And your ability to fail gracefully and fail forward and learn from those are going to spell out how successful you're going to be in this career. We're lucky enough to be in a field that is almost an unlimited amount of knowledge to acquire, and nobody has it all. We did have it all at one point back in like the 70s, I guess. Yeah. We had everything in the palm of our hand. That's not happening anymore. It's too varied and too wide for any one person to have anything. So you have to lean on other people, and you have to be willing to fail and learn. I guess what I would say is that one of my biggest failures came from, and it's a super kind of, it's very germane to the subject of being a professional in cybersecurity right now, which is that it's burnout. And so earlier this year, actually from fall of last year into this year, I had started studying for OSCP. If you're not familiar, that's the Offensive Security Certified Professional. It's effectively the gold standard entry-level hacking cert. A lot of people don't think OSCP is entry-level, but it absolutely is. What ended up happening was that I was throwing so much of myself at trying to achieve OSCP that I was neglecting my health, my relationships. I was neglecting even my work life at that point. And so when I took OSCP for the first time, I tunnel visioned, I panicked, and I failed. And I failed hard. Like, I failed like 0 points failed. Basically tried until 1 a.m. to just complete. I like threw everything that I could at the test. Basically walked away with no points, and rage quit. And I'm okay with admitting that because I had never, up to that point, failed so hard at something that I had thought I had been prepared for, right? So if you fail, like, okay, let's say you roll up to a college exam and you're like, I haven't been coming to class, I haven't been doing the homework, I'm probably going to fail, whatever. That's like an understandable feeling where you're just like, yeah, you know, I'm not going to get this one. When I went into the OSCP exam, unbeknownst to me at the time, I was burnt to a crisp, but I thought I was going to pass it 100% with flying colors, and I didn't. I got shellacked. And that was the lesson, right? The lesson is that you're going to be humbled in this field. If you walk in and you're not taking care of yourself and you're not making sure that you are pouring from a full pot, as they say, you're not going to have the kind of like mental scaffolding to be able to understand this is if you're in the technical side, I should preface all of this by saying this is really more for the technical side. If you're in the technical side, there's unlimited depth and nuance and detail that you need to pay attention to. If you're not ready to synthesize that information, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail hard. And so I learned that after failing OSCP the first time. Took a break for the rest of the year, hung out with my family and friends over the holidays, picked it back up in January. I rescheduled my exam for February, and I crushed it the second time.
Nice. Yeah.
So the idea was that I was not prepared because I wasn't taking care of myself the first time. The second time, when I had a chance to kind of center myself and get my head back in the game, crushed it the second time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We have a similar story. 'Cause I took the OSCP and I got completely crushed on it.
It's common.
I had 90 days of lab time, and you know I would continue to study it, but like it's literally it's like we have the same exact story. I would only focus on that. I had a full-time job at the same time as well, so it's like balancing those two things. I took the exam. I was just completely burnt out with it pretty much, and I failed it. And honestly, now I probably don't want to take it again because of like the new monitoring stuff that they do now. And honestly, I'm not even a red teamer. I'm a blue teamer. You know, day in, day out. So, but yeah, that's pretty good advice. So starting out, so most of my audience, like I said, is like brand new, and I know both of our career paths started from the military. And given that most of my audience is from the U.S., but I have a good number from like the United Kingdom, India, and such like that. So they might not have the same opportunities as far as getting like IT in their militaries. I'm not sure how it's all structured in their countries. So outside of the military, what are some other pathways that you think a person could take? And going into debt for college, I'm not a fan for. So like any unique ways you could think of getting a pathway into security, whether that's like any like scholarships that you know of, or like any like work and go to school at the same time at universities that you're aware of. So what are some of your I guess opinions or advice on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I recognize you probably feel the same way. I'm super privileged to be able to have had a background that the military is not going to care about your background. They're going to train you from zero to get you to perform the job, right? But not everybody has that opportunity. So I'm super lucky that I've had that. And eventually, further along in my career, I felt like, I guess earlier on, I didn't have a ton to give. I didn't have a lot to say and give back to the community. But I'm starting to feel like I do have something to give back. I think one of your first things that you should do is go to YouTube, go to Twitch, go find the streamers and the YouTube content creators, much like yourself, that are putting out the hey, I'm going to explain from zero to hero how you become, how you do subnetting. Hey, I'm going to explain from zero to hero how you're going to do basic level red teaming or basic level penetration testing, that kind of stuff. So if you have an internet connection, you have the first part, which is open source training made by content creators on YouTube or Twitch who are putting that stuff out. The second tier up from that is going to be where you start to kind of pay for stuff. But if you don't have a lot of cash, and I know that it's paying for training with the idea that hopefully this is going to be an investment in me, but I don't know if it's going to pay off, is super, super precarious all for everybody. Mm-hmm. Try to find Udemy courses that are on the subjects that you want to study in, right? If it's going to be the technical side. The other thing that I would say is that once you begin to get the skills, start to make content yourself, push that out. I'm starting to do that. And then have projects. Think of technical projects that excite you, that you would want to complete, maybe over a weekend or maybe over a month or so. Get yourself a GitHub account and start, coding and start putting together projects. That's all kind of more for the technical side, but the idea is that I'm confident in saying that the tech industry, specifically in IT, red teaming, pen testing, blue side, DFIR, you don't need any academic credentials. They will improve your chances of getting a job if you so desire, and they are certainly what you make of them. But your big name brand college, university, degrees are probably not necessary if you can specialize in a rare and technical skill. And so the other part of that is the certification part. So Udemy is kind of the cheaper instructional style. Eventually, you're going to want to work up to the point, maybe save up a little money and start to go after those certifications. I'll tell you that having certs is not everything, but not having certs is a huge roadblock, right? And that's a little bit just the way it is, unfortunately. If you're ever in a position to do interviews with people, maybe I try to be as understanding as possible if people don't have certs. But they will... It's kind of like walking into an interview with a very nice tailored suit. Before you say anything, somebody's going to know what you're all about as you walk into that interview, right? So open source projects, open source training, start to go after Udemy stuff. It's usually pretty cheap. Specialize in a technical skill that's in demand and rare, and then go after certifications. If you can do all of those things, you might not even need a college degree at all, full stop.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I started my security career, outside of the military. It was, and even then, like before I got my first IT job, I was still like an IT generalist. I was 25 November. I didn't know what the hell my job was because the unit I was in didn't really do anything with it. And then it's actually funny. The way it worked in the Army was, the 17 series and 25 Delta was like still brand new or at least 17 series was brand new at the time that they actually interviewed us, like a job interview, which I thought was so weird. Like, it's like, okay, well, I go to this unit and I like work with them a little bit, but they like actually interviewed me, maybe take a PT test, like all of that away. And then they vote. Like, it wasn't a vote, but they just like asked in the unit, oh, does this guy seem like a good fit? Yep. Yeah. They gave thumbs up all around. They transferred units and such like that. So, yeah.
It's minus the PT test. It sounds just like a private sector job interview that you would go through. It's
right.
Very interesting.
Yeah. It was mind blowing to me. And, in the Army, it's very close knit. Like, I don't know if it's the same way in the Marine Corps. It might've been a little different since you weren't in a cyber shop, but, like in the Army, it was really weird because outside of like leadership and such like that, so outside of your battalion commander and such like that, officers, warrants, enlisted, they were all in the same room doing the same exact training. The officers that I've dealt with, they honestly didn't care if you called them sir. They just like, hey. And it felt really weird, like calling like a lieutenant colonel by, almost like their first name, because we all added each other on LinkedIn and we had a Slack channel. It was just so weird. And I'm not trying to pitch here for the Army or Marine Corps or anything like that, but the certifications part that you're talking about, some of the certs, like SAN certs, GX certs, are incredibly expensive. I know
they're super expensive.
I mean, GIAC certs, you don't have to take the SANS course, but literally everything on that exam is going to be from the SANS course, which is going to be a couple $1,000s. And there's one guy that I'm connected with on LinkedIn. I think he has like 20 different GIAC certs, and he just got his GSC, and he's an E6. Like, it just blows my mind. He's going to get out of the service, and he's just going to have email after email left and right of just XYZ 3-letter agency and private sector companies just like, hey, you want to be a principal architect for us or something like that.
So like one of the coolest things that I've seen kind of coming out of the content creator Twitch and YouTube side is that there's a bit of a democratization of this training, right? So maybe back in the day the only options that you had were to fork over $6,000 for a SANS certification. Okay, so I could do that, or maybe I could just hope that somebody's going to take me in as an apprentice and hopefully, bring me up to the level of skill that I need. But now we have content creators that are pushing their stuff out just for the love of it and just to get a community together and make the world, a more learned, more secure place. So that's just fantastic, right? The idea that you need to take certifications to learn anything, I think, is frankly ridiculous. Like I said, having certs is not everything. Not having certs is hard. Certifications will say that you are up to a certain level, depending on which ones that you've taken of expected experience and knowledge. So the democratization of putting out content has allowed us to be super, super choosy with the certifications that we go after, instead of being on the unlevel playing field where the person who is trying to get training is now put into a position where they either have to fork over tons of money that nobody ever had. Let's be honest, like nobody has $6,000 lying around probably, or they just don't have that opportunity. So I think that's one of the coolest things that I've seen coming out of the new content creator, content creators that are putting stuff out on YouTube now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And when I go to interview people, it's the main thing I look for is self-initiative and these projects. I'm guilty of this. I have like a few projects on GitHub that I started and just like forgot to finish. So that's like another thing. It's like,
who doesn't?
Right. And so like they have a GitHub. It's like, oh, well, you started this, and it might not be like the correct way to do things, but you could always teach someone. It's just kind of like the self-drive and initiative that I really look for. So, and the last question for me. So, I know the media portrays like hacking and all that is like guys in hoodies. Like it's so out of touch. Honestly, it's ridiculous. So for a brand new person, which area in InfoSec do you think has the most opportunity for growth? I know like red team, a lot of noobish people, brand new people go after, obviously, because that's really the only thing they see. But you and I know that there's like the GRC, blue team, etc. like that. Which area do you think? And it could be broad, or it doesn't have to be specific. Which area do you think has the most opportunity for a new person to excel and go to like a principal level?
Yeah, I say this from a position of love. I am a red teamer by heart and by trade. I specialize in putting attack chains together. I specialize in studying APTs and emulating them and doing that to put together training so people can go toe-to-toe with those APTs. That idea that red teaming is cybersecurity, it's got to go. It's really got to go. Red teaming is a part of cybersecurity. It's the yin to the yang of DFIR, malware analysis, cyber defense, network analytics, host-based analytics. I believe that the red side, the penetration testing and red teaming is it's attractive, right? It's certainly easier, I would say. It's much, much easier. Cybersecurity is the perfect form of asymmetrical warfare, right? You only ever, it's cliche almost, and I hate to even bring it up, but as a red teamer, you only ever have to be right one time, and then you're right? Zero logon is a fantastic example of that. We've had domain controllers since time immemorial that have been humming along, and people have been just like painstakingly patching and getting them ready and looking to minimize their attack surface, and then some 0 day comes along that no one could have ever, seen coming. And as soon as somebody has the ability to take that shot, they blast a torpedo down and the Death Star blows up, right? So red teaming is easy, easier, I would say. It's attractive, it's high speed, it's awesome. It's not cybersecurity total, and it's not cybersecurity proper. It's a yin to the yang. What I would say is that examine the areas that are going to be rare and valuable and that people necessarily aren't talking about on Twitter.
Yeah.
Which is shorthand for, although IoT is coming up in the world, like, think about how rare and valuable it would be to be an IoT embedded DFIR, IoT embedded memory forensics expert. Or maybe a cyber lawyer, right? Like there's a whole nother part. All of the technical stuff aside, we need many other different people in this field, right? We need lawyers. We need people who are really good administrators. We need people who are we need recruiters. So what about those areas? Those are coming up too, and they're not, they don't get the social media cred that red teaming and pen testing does, but that doesn't mean that they're less valuable. They're super important. We need people to understand the law and put the cyber lens over that and be able to stand up in court and say, no, my client was not doing that at the time, and I have the cyber forensics to back it up, right? Imagine how rare and powerful and valuable that's going to be. Those are the areas that I would say. Red teaming is my home, and I love it, but it's not everything. Examine the blue side, examine the specific, very valuable skills that maybe people aren't talking about, and that's where you might find your the thing that's going to grab onto you and not let you go in this field. For me, that was red teaming. It doesn't necessarily have to be that for everybody. Yeah. So that's, I think, what I would say to that.
And you worded that perfectly. Actually, I just posted a video talking about like the different career paths you could take into InfoSec, and like I had a few comments on my Discord. People were like, oh, I didn't even know that existed. Like, yeah, so it's
exactly.
Like I said, like not everyone could be a red teamer. I mean, I've done one pen test engagement. Like, this is beyond me. Like, I'm vuln management. I'm analytics. Like, I'm risk.
There you go. So people make entire careers out of vulnerability scanning and management, right? So you roll up with an ACAS scanner, which, if for those unfamiliar with that, is just a scanning platform that can effectively log into a host and kind of just look around and poke at different things and say, the patching is out of date. You've got this weird program that's got a critical vulnerability against it. There are a couple other things that are probably not very concerning, but go fix those. People make entire careers out of doing that stuff. People make entire careers out of putting together the paperwork that enables people to go out and do their jobs, right? If you want to talk, if you want to go, like, if you're mathematically minded, right? And I shouldn't even use that term, because I believe that everybody could be mathematically minded if they try. But if your thing is mathematics and cryptography, go take a look at advanced cryptographic algorithms. Go take a look at how data is encrypted and decrypted. Yeah. That stuff might interest you. It's super rare. It's super valuable. So that's another way that you could make a living. So yeah, it's plenty. This field is as wide as the ocean and twice as deep. And red teaming is the nice little foam at the top, but there's a whole vast wealth of knowledge below that. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, what you brought up, I've never actually thought of as like recruiters. I that's one thing I'm sure you might have ran into. I've certainly ran into it when I've applied at a few bigger companies. Is like these recruiters. I swear they just like. They don't specialize. They just do like everything. So they don't focus on security or anything like that. So sometimes I don't know who writes these job descriptions, but it's like entry level. You like I swear I've seen one before. It was like you must have 10 years experience in this XYZ security standard, and then like the person that wrote, I forgot what it was, or it was a coding language, and they're like, I invented this 7 years ago. Like, how are you going to have 10 years experience with this? But yeah, that's a good one. And then cryptography, especially with, nation states, upping up their, their cyber programs. You're going to have, encryption breaking. We saw with SHA-1 and Google, they had the, what do they call that? They produced the same hash on two different files, a collision. So they had a hash collision. So, we're obviously going to see that more frequently, and it's just it's an arms race, honestly, with technology and all that.
We're not in a position to turn anybody away at this point. We need everybody. We need every perspective and every. I'll tell. I was not technically minded when I was younger. I was a theater kid, right? I was doing plays and I was artistic, and that was kind of my thing when I was younger. I evolved into kind of picking up this skill and practicing it over and over, and then that became my career. That being a technically proficient practitioner in this field became kind of my passion in life. So we need every perspective. We're not going to be turning anybody away. The only thing you basically sign a pact when you come into the cybersecurity field, which is that whatever you're going to do, be that recruiting or network analytics or red teaming or cryptography, anything that you do, you need to try to learn about it every single day.
Yeah.
Full stop. And if you can be okay with that, if you're okay with learning, coming into a field where you're not going to know anything, picking up as much knowledge as you can, having that unveil other things that you know nothing about, and then starting that cycle over, if you're going to be okay with that, you'll do well here. And we will be better for it, and we need you for it. So
definitely.
That's my spiel.
So you got. I know you said you had a couple questions for me. I got no other questions. I pretty much asked everything everyone on my Discord had.
Yeah. So how long did you spend in the Army, and do you think your Army experience impact how you, like, did you want to get out and do this, or did you want to stay in the Army? Just talk a little bit about kind of your experience in military service.
Yeah. So it was 6 years, and I joined because I told you I had that IT job that I just got during like that gap time for my court date, and I remember like the moment that like I have that defining moment that changed the way I thought about like my career and all that. Like my mentor at the time at this like little data center, I was just a cable monkey. I was working like 25 hour weeks just crimping Cat 6, and I went to the knock and he's like, "This is traceroute." And then he showed me traceroute. I'm like, holy shit, I'm talking to computer in San Jose? Like, what the hell? I had no idea of what the internet was, honestly. And that was the defining moment. And I knew, like, I mean, I have Instagram posts going all the way back to when I joined. It's like, this is what I want to do. Like, and I just went full-fledged at it. And, I went through school for Gordon and all that. And I'd say the majority of my career was kind of a waste in the military because it was just kind of like hip pocket training and just like, oh, go do this, do that. But I mean, your mileage may vary. I went to the cyber unit and it was just like a culture shock, honestly. Like everyone is kind of equal there. Like everyone treats each other with respect. We're in the military. So like if you have people outside of the unit come in, obviously military bearing, like customs and courtesies and all that. But behind closed doors, we're all the same pretty much. And my time there was, I liked it a lot. And at the time, this was like this is 2019. I was, getting hit up by retention. Like, what's your plan? And I was on the fence because like I wanted to stay in, but I don't want to stay enlisted. I want to get my degree. I want to come back as an officer and then finish out, get my, my pension. My dad did 25 years in the Air Force and I wanted to do that. So that's currently where I'm at right now. I don't have anything negative to say, honestly. Like the last unit I was in, I was thoroughly shocked. For being a cyber unit, they cared about PT. It was so weird. Like every single day, PT tests twice a year, like the whole shebang. And, they just send an email like, who wants to do training in, Japan, and you just say me, and you go to Japan for like 2 weeks, and it was
amazing.
They just gave a giant list. It's like, here's all this training you could do, and like, okay, we have like 50 seats for XYZ SANS course, and it's like, oh my god. So
nice.
That's the plan. It's a matter of trying to figure out when's the appropriate time to come back, and all that. I'm just kind of taking a break at this point, but
nice.
I liked it a lot, and it definitely helped me on my resume to get my first security job in the private sector. They saw that, even though I didn't really have that much valuable experience, they just saw that name right there, and that's kind of what triggered it from there. And honestly, that's like another weird thing is like I worked at Amazon and I currently work at IBM. Like having those two things on my resume like is going to stand out. And I'm not trying to brag or anything, but that's like what recruiter like, oh, he worked at Amazon and IBM and such like that.
So, it's not necessarily bragging. It's just that's the fruits of your labor, right? You get that as a line item that you can put on your resume at that point. So you should be very proud of that. Those are two fantastic places to work. IBM is, I think it's headquartered in Massachusetts, if I remember correctly. But go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say they're out of New York.
Okay, yeah. My other question was back on the subject of when you were talking about your time with in the second cyber unit that you were talking about, where there seemed to be some kind of like egalitarian equality about everything, where warrants and the cadre and the younger enlisted guys are all kind of working cohesively. I've noticed that there is that kind of feeling in highly specialized groups. Like the kind of like quintessential example of that are going to be your special forces, your actual operators, right? Where you're going to have like a group of people that are across every rank that are all referring to each other by their first name and working like side by side, and rank is less important than like respecting just the leadership of the people that are next to you, right? And or maybe you're the leader and respecting the guys that are going with you. Did you find that being in a unit with a highly specialized field like cybersecurity made it so that those barriers were broken down? Like the Army customs and courtesies were less important than technical proficiency and technical leadership in that kind of way?
Yeah, definitely. So the unit was a reserve unit. So everyone, and I can't speak for active duty. There's a guy on my channel who was active duty in a cyber unit, so I could probably lean on him for the active duty side of it. The reserve component, I would say, was a twofold. It was super highly specialized in the military aspect of it, but civilian side, pretty much everyone that worked in the cyber unit also had a security job outside of that, so they know. And again, this is also Silicon Valley as well, so like it's all about efficiency, high speed, like we're doing bam 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 bam. So nice. they kind of took that mindset and moved it into the unit. So like, going through like this whole chain just to get a simple question, they're like, well, just go to them, like just go talk to them, like it's super fast. And I mean, it makes sense. So it's a twofold, because it was like everyone had that civilian job, but they're vast. I mean, the ranks were completely, I mean, we had E3s in the same room as like lieutenant colonels doing hands-on training, and they would just, it was an interesting dynamic. But yes, I would say the highly specialized part in the military, as well as having that, civilian job that was, all 100% about efficiency.
Nice. Very cool. And I guess my final question, just to kind of cap it off, from your T-shirt that you're wearing right now, it's a North Face T-shirt, and so I'm wondering, as a purchaser of North Face equipment, are you an avid outdoorsman at this point? Are you hiking? Are you going places? And if you have any hiking experience, what's like the favorite place that you've been, or maybe the favorite place that you want to go someday?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I'm an avid hiker. My big thing is I'm trying to go to all the national parks. So nice. I have pins from each one. The last one we went to were the Smokies, and it was interesting you're talking about that. I was at the Smokies right after that. But I don't hike a lot, but I do go like on the trails and such, like a 5-mile trail. I'll go do that and all that. Nice, I don't know. I've always thought about it. I want to go on like weird adventures. I don't know what it is. Like I want to go to Antarctica. I want to go to Barrow, Alaska. Like nice. My brain's thinking like I want to go to the most northern settlement, which is Alert, Canada. But that's like a Canadian military thing. So like, how can I get there legally? So like, So I do like spending a lot of time outside. I'm not like a crazy mountaineer person where like what you were trying to do, like walk the entire Appalachian Mountains. You catch me dead doing that.
I mean, it's not, it sounds crazy, but it's just one foot in front of the other, I guess. It's not, there's no vertical mountaineering involved in that.
Oh, really?
Which is so it's just a path, so it's just one foot in front of the other. But yeah, so like on the subject of like crazy adventures and stuff, my current plan, eventually I'm going to get back out. I don't know when this is going to be, but eventually I'll get back out to the AT and crush that and get that, because now I have like a debt to pay, having 250 miles under my belt and just knowing that went fine, and I could have done that 20 more times and gotten all the way up to Maine. So I got to get that at some point, but I don't know when that's going to be. My other thing that I want to do is do the Camino Santiago, which is in Spain. And it's more, I mean, it's about 30 days of really walking. It's not even really hiking. because it's not very hilly out there, but it's just like where the AT is like you're roughing it in the backcountry. The Camino is like you're under the beautiful Spanish sun walking through the pastures, and people are coming up to you and giving you food, and just all kinds of fun stuff like that. So
yeah,
those are my plans for the intermediate and long term. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So like I said, I like to do a lot of like adventures. Like, I mean, I remember this road trip I took back in 2017, and I know it's like completely different than like hiking and all that, but it's just like the adventure and like the thrill of everything. Like, I had my buddy, he hit me up on like, I think it was like 12 hours notice. He's like, "Hey Cody, can I borrow your truck? I need to go to Vegas for SEMA." I don't know if you're familiar with SEMA or not.
No, I'm not.
It's the world's, I think it's the world's largest aftermarket parts event in Las Vegas. It's Specialty Equipment Manufacturing Association.
Nice.
It's done yearly. And he's like, "I need to borrow your truck to drag my race car down there." I was like, "Okay, sure. Why not?" I mean, this was a truck I bought for $75, by the way. That's an interesting story in itself. But I'm like, yeah, sure.
It's achievement unlocked right there.
Right.
$75 truck. Wow.
And I was like, sure. And then I was like, "Can I come along?" He's like, "Sure." So I called in sick. Nice. And I went to Vegas on 12 hours notice. That was a fun time.
Nice.
Driving all the way down, ran out of gas twice in the middle of Nevada, siphoning race gas out of a car and putting it in. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff I really like. So like the biggest trip I want to do, it's so weird. I don't know why it makes sense to me, but I want to do it. I want to make like a travel vlog of like one of the most grueling travels you could do, from the top of the world in Barrow, Alaska, to the very bottom of the world in Ushuaia, Argentina. But I want to make it look super fun and all that in one leg. Nice. So, but yeah, well, thank you for joining and discussing and chatting about all this stuff.
Yeah. Thank you. The pleasure was mine. This is, it's good to chat and talk shop and get the message out there, and maybe try to get more people into the fold and let them know about our life and that kind of thing. It's a worthwhile endeavor. So thank you for having me on. This is a ton of fun.
Yeah, of course. And for those watching, I'll obviously put his details down below. Check out his channel. He does have a YouTube channel. I'm gonna release this under his permission once, whenever he makes his video from unlisted to public, and then if he gets other videos up, he'll put that up, and I'll release this video. So anyways, thank you so much, Matt, for joining, and I'll chat with you after the video and such like that. So
thank you so much, Cody. Everybody, thanks for listening, and take care.
Yep.